We are going to take a few weeks and work through one of our core values that really is the one that most, or more than any other, I guess, most resembles what our name is. And it's the core value of leading people home. We have 5, they're on the wall outside, and some of you have seen those. We've had those on the wall from the moment we opened these doors. And one of those 5 is to lead people home. And we know, as a church family here at the Bridge, we know that we were made for more than this, that more than this life. There's more to do. There's the reason we're here. God even specifically says in His Word that we have been created with eternity in mind, that our brief time here, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years on earth, that there's more than that. But ultimately, God is more than our hope. He is our home. And wherever He is home. And if you go back to the beginning of the story and you find the first man and the first woman who'd been given instructions on how to live, when they chose to do their own thing and messed it all up, yes, there were consequences immediate in the way they felt and the way they looked at each other even, and the way they communicated with their Creator. But ultimately, the most telling picture was that they were no longer able to go into the garden where they lived. God banished them from home. And from that time until today, that has been the great journey of trying to get back home, to get back to that place where we were before. And in many ways, a bridge was what was needed. We were at a place not where we were created to be. We were people, not who we were created to be. And God created, by building a bridge, a way for us to be able to go from where we were to where we were created to be, and who we were to who we've been created to be. Jesus was that bridge for us. In the beginning, God had other plans that He devised and implemented. There was written instruction. God gave the people the law and said, if you'll follow this, you'll be able to find your way home. But they couldn't follow the law. So then God gave them spoken instructions. He gave them prophets, and the prophets said, this is what God asked of you. This is how you're to live your lives. If you'll follow this, then you'll be able to go home. They weren't able to do that, so God said, I'll do it myself. And He sent His Son. And Jesus came as that bridge for us to get us to where we needed to be. He did what the law and what the prophets were unable to do for us. Once we got across the bridge, though, He didn't say, well done, I'm glad you're here, enjoy your rest. Jesus said, just as the Father sent me, I'm going to send you. Now I want you to go back into the hard parts, go back into the dark parts, and I want you to bring people out. I want you to now lead people home. I want you to be that bridge to help people get from where they are to the place that I've created them to be. And so for us, that core value of leading people home is where all of it begins and really where it ends. That is, if we're going to just do one thing right, that is what we're going to do. We're going to lead people home. That is our value. Now, that's easier said than done. It sounds great. And when you first walk across the bridge, you're like, yeah, of course, I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to change the world. I am excited for this. There is a sense of a fire in our belly that we can't get rid of in those first few moments. We have some people that will be baptized next week, and they're going to take that step, and they're not going to be pressed to have to tell other people that they're about to be baptized, that what's going on, that God's changed their lives. That's easy. Yeah, of course, I've got this fire. But as most of you know who have already crossed the bridge, after a while, you realize, this is hard. People aren't impressed. I changed the profile on my page. I added a Bible verse, and I changed the way I'm doing a few things, and they still don't want it. They don't even think a bridge is necessary. They don't want to go where I want to lead them. And over time, we begin to step back and say, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And yet we have this instruction that Jesus gives us to go back, that no one rests until everyone finds his or her rest. So we're stuck here in between. We've got this thing that we wanted to do, but now find out it's really, really hard. And then we've got God saying, no, that's really the one thing that matters the most. And so I want to spend a couple of weeks working through this core value of leading people home. Certainly getting to some of the specifics and practical parts of it, but today I want us to begin really with trying to figure out the why behind it all. And as we work through it, there's going to be some quotes from a man named Paul that are going to show up more than once throughout this time together. And it's from a letter that he wrote to a church in a place called Corinth. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 19, this author, Paul, gave us his, in many ways, core value. He helps us understand the lead people home idea. He says, though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. And as if he almost felt like, when I write this, they're going to get confused. So he gives all of us a summary statement here, thankfully. He says, I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. So this follower of Jesus, who had met Jesus in a very dramatic way, and some of you had dramatic crossings of the bridge. You were maybe the talk of your little hometown when you met Jesus, and maybe people said you got religious, and you were the one, and they talked. They said it won't last, or they said I can't believe it finally happened, or it was a big deal in your high school, or whatever the case was. Maybe you had a dramatic moment like that. You were way off the rails, and you were way in the weeds, and God brought you into a place of hope. And Paul had one of those moments, and he met Jesus face to face, and it was a miraculous kind of time. And even though he's finally now able to say, I know him, he's now saying, I'm willing to risk it all just so that I might win someone else, so that I might reach one more person. I'm willing to become all things to all people. So the question would be, why? Why make it your life's mission to get in more trouble and to risk your own life and to risk your own reputation now that you've found your way home? Why go back and make things harder? What is the urgency behind it all? Because as we're taking a look at these words and the idea of winning people to Jesus, there's a lot of questions here. What does it mean to win someone? How do we do that? What are some practical steps here? I've tried before. I've got friends. I have family members. And we'll get to some of that over the next few weeks. But I want us to understand this why, this urgency, before we move on. Why was it so important to him to say, I'm willing to do anything and everything? And why is it important for us as a church to say, there are a lot of great things we could do, there are a lot of things we could teach, and a lot of things we could push, but in the end, the thing that we're going to do is risk everything in order to lead someone back home. Why the urgency? Why not just let people live their own lives, and if they figure it out, great. If they meet Jesus the way we did, awesome. And if not, it's kind of on them. Why not just live that kind of life? Well, I want us to get it straight from the mouth of Jesus himself. If you have a Bible, open it up to the book of Matthew. It's the very first book in the New Testament, the first book we have written about Jesus. It gives us most of his, primarily, easy for me to say, primarily from the time he was 30 to the time he was 33. We have a little bit of his birth, but for the most part, it's his ministry time. And in chapter 24, Jesus is talking to people about what people have always wanted to know about. What's it going to be like in the end? What are some signs? What's it going to be like when the world ends? How's it all going to go down? How will we know when it's happening? Surely this world isn't going to last forever. And Jesus, you've even said that things are going to change, that there's coming a time when you're going to leave us, but maybe you're going to come back. And how is that all going to work out? So people are all interested in this. And Jesus is taking time in Matthew 24, that's what we call Matthew chapter 24, to answer this. So I want us to look at his words. In verse 36, Jesus said, "But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away." Jesus was a master storyteller and a master teacher, and he always brought in some word picture or brought in some image or took their minds back to something they could recall and they understood. And in this moment, he's taking them back to the time of Noah. And he said, you know the time when Noah built the ark? And everyone's, yeah, we're tracking with that. He said, well, everyone else acted like nothing was going on. Don't mind the man building the huge thing. Let's just move on. He's lost his mind. We don't understand what he's talking about. There's no way what he's saying is going to happen anyway. They're just doing their own thing. And up until the day that Noah got in the boat with his family and with those animals, up until that day, people didn't pay any attention to it. And then the rains came and it was too late. Well, why would Jesus bring that up when you're talking about end times? Why would he give them a history lesson to go back? He said in verse 39, that is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill. One will be taken and the other left. This is one of the most unsettling messages that Jesus ever gave. It's disturbing, and depending on your perspective, it might even be a little frightening. I don't spend a ton of time talking about it, and I know most people don't want to spend a ton of time listening about it. But these are Jesus' words, and these are incredibly important words, and in many ways, they help us understand why a man like Paul would say, I'm willing to do anything and everything so that I can, by all means possible, just try to win one more. And it's why we as a church family have ultimately said the thing that we're going to do if we do nothing else right is we are going to lead people home. Because of this image, that there will come a day that only God the Father knows. There will come a day when you're at work and in an instant, one of you is gone. There's coming a day when you're at work and you're there doing your own thing, minding your own business perhaps, and in an instant, God is going to remove his family from the earth. Now, there's a lot I don't quite understand about it all. I am a little bit hoping that no one's driving a car in the moment. Like there's a lot of, when you start to think about it, there's a lot of jobs that like, don't stop now. Like give me warning, at least 10 seconds to turn the machine off. Like there's a lot of thinking here, but Jesus doesn't give us any of that. That's just us having fun imagining. Jesus says the time's coming and you don't know when in an instant, everything's going to be changed. I mean, truth be told, that means as we're walking out of this place today, if the moment happens, there will be a very, very different kind of parking lot. And I'll be honest, I hope that there's not a single soul left on this land. But I know there will be. Because I know not all of us have said yes to Jesus, and we're not ready. You say, well, if this is going to happen, you better believe. Sign me up today. Where's that I've decided to follow Jesus card? Well, if we knew that, that would change a lot. If somehow I was closer to God than most pastors, and I'm not, and he said, hey, just tell them it's tomorrow afternoon. I would tell you, not online, I would tell you first, quietly, and I'd text y'all, hey, it's 2:45 tomorrow, and we'd change things. We'd have record baptisms tomorrow. Like it would be insane what would happen around here. But we don't know when. Even at times makes me wonder if some of us, when we bow to pray in just a few moments before we head out, if you're just going to pray with one eye open, just to make sure, I don't want to be that one, and I want to understand how it's all going to go. And this is a very difficult thing to think about. Not easy for any of us. Yet Jesus is not saying, well, it would be like this. He just says, the day is coming when 2 people will be together, and the one that knows me is going to be gone. Immediately. Therefore, in verse 42, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would have not let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. As a result, Paul said, I am willing to do whatever it takes. I will become all things to all people in order that I might win some. We as a church family will now say we will do whatever it takes, no matter the cost, in order to lead someone home, because that is what matters most. There are all sorts of things that I know that you would rather hear when you come into a place like this. You want to sing your favorite songs, and you want me to give you scriptures that will encourage you when you're lonely or sad or discouraged. And we could all feel a certain way and we leave. And those are good days, and there's nothing wrong with those moments. But that's not actually what matters the most. What matters the most is that all of us are ready for that day, because we do not know when. I approach every Sunday morning like this will be the last time, perhaps, for me to be able to share. Not because I've got some sort of negative bent. I know that time may come, and I just want to be ready. I want my last word to mean something. And our urgency here is because the time is coming in an instant when we don't know. The time is coming when whatever you didn't say is never going to get said. And whatever conversation you've been putting off is never going to happen. And whatever air that needs to be cleared is never going to be cleared. And whatever prayer that needs to be prayed is never going to be prayed. It is over. And if you and I are not ready for this moment, anything we've learned and done along the way is going to fade, and none of it is going to make a difference. So Jesus is telling us here, not necessarily exactly into detail how it's all going to unfold, but the time is going to come when he is taking his people home, and either you're ready or you're not. So in verse 45, Jesus closes out this time and says, "Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, 'My master is staying away a long time.' And he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." No one ever signs up to, would you put that verse on my, no, that's not the tattoo verse. It's, I can do all things through Christ. It's never, he'll be cut up into pieces and assigned to a place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is not enjoyable to read. Last night, sometimes I get excited and pretty fired up about what I want to share. Last night, I just went, oh, here we go. This will be one. Of all the ones, this will be one. That's great. But in the end, actually, this is probably the most important thing I'll ever say to you, more than anything else. There are a lot of different ways we can make each other feel when we remember, when we hold up moments of truth, but this is actually what matters more than anything. And if I fail to share this, I am the biggest failure of all the people that God has placed with any opportunity to make a difference. This is what matters. It matters that every single one of you is ready. And if we walk out of this place today, and the Father has determined this is the moment, that we're all going together, that we're all together the whole time, for all eternity. You say, well, what happens if we don't? Well, there's a lot there. The book of Revelation is filled with things that we try to understand. It appears that there's going to be a little time after that where there will be perhaps an opportunity for people still to say yes to Jesus, but the church is gone. People of the church are gone. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to be very chaotic. It's not going to be a thing that we're going to miss if we're not here. We're going to be glad we weren't here for that. And then there will come a time, it appears, when Jesus says enough is enough, and I'm coming back with my people, my second coming, and I'm going to reign forever, leading up to a time of ultimate judgment. The devil will be cast into hell for all time. There'll be a day of judgment, and those who have chosen not to follow Jesus will go with the master of evil for all time, where there's weeping, gnashing of teeth. It's not a good picture. But you and I have the opportunity today. We may not have it tomorrow, but we have it today to nail that down. And so a couple of the questions that we need to ask ourselves is, one, am I ready? If this is the moment, if this afternoon is it, if we've already seen our last Super Bowl and we don't even know it, if this afternoon, if this is the time, am I ready? Is this going to be a moment where, okay, I'm not perfect, I don't have it all together, but Jesus, I'm a sinner and you're the Savior, I'm lost and you're my Lord and I'm ready to come home. Is this my time? And then the next question, are my people ready? My friends that I'm sitting beside right now, my family members, my kids, if I have kids, are they truly ready? Parents, I understand that you want to allow your kids the freedom to make the decision for themselves. I respect it. I understand it. I am a parent myself. I also know that there comes a time when urgency is urgency, and we need to do what we can. We can't drag anyone across the bridge that Jesus made for us, but we can do more than we're doing now. I know some of you spouses don't want to run off your husband or run off your wife with all the talk about Jesus and trying to make sure they're ready. I get that. But we don't know if we're going to have another day. I know you don't want to be weird at school, and I know you don't want your friends to feel like you're some sort of spiritual freak, and I get that. None of us wants to be that. But there is an urgency to it all. There's a reason that you and I need to make that decision even today. So are my people ready? And then the last question I've asked myself as I've worked through this is, what am I willing to do about it? And I know right now I need some more time. I've got some people that I care about that are not followers of Jesus, and if today is a day, I will never see them again. And I'm not ready. And I know maybe a follower of Jesus shouldn't say, don't come back today, but there have been moments when I've just had to pray and say, God, not today. I need another week. I need another conversation. I need to be able to send this message, and I need to see him one more time. And he wasn't where I thought he was going to be on Friday, and I'll get to maybe see him Monday. And I've asked for more time. Maybe you need to be doing that, to just pray for a little more time. It's okay to say, Jesus, I can't not wait to see you. I'm ready for that moment, but not now. Hold on. I got one more conversation to have. I have one more person. I have one more friend. I want to make sure that he is ready. Jesus is going to come back. Jesus is returning. And I know you say, well, you're just this short of a cardboard sign on the side of the road. I understand. I know how it sounds. I also know that it's all I know. Jesus is more, he's hope, but he's more than hope. He is home. And we don't get home if we reject him as our bridge. And so if you're not a follower of Jesus, it's not hard. You don't have to make up for everything you've done. You don't have to pay everybody back. You don't even have to remember every sin you've ever committed. You just have to be willing to say, God, I am a sinner, and you're the only one that can save me, and I give my life to you. You know, nowhere in the Bible does it say you invite Jesus into your heart. It's easy to talk to kids about that. Nowhere in the Bible does it mention that at all. It just says, whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, you believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And I don't want to go to heaven without all of you. And if you're not sure, I pray that in a moment you will pray that prayer today. And the prayer is not magical, it's nothing special. It has to be a reflection of truly where you are and what you want with your soul. But if you're ready to do that, I want to lead you in that prayer. Then at the end of the prayer, before we leave today, I hope that you'll take that card and just say, today was my day. I've become a follower of Christ. And even if this is not your church, if you leave going, I don't really like this place, but I like Jesus, that's fine. No, none taken. Okay, but we want to help you take that next step and connect you in some way. Because Jesus is more important than where you choose to worship. I do think he likes us. Anyway, but that's fine. Wherever. It's about knowing Jesus. It's not about necessarily finding a perfect church, because there is not one. And the truth is, when Jesus comes back and he calls his people, that we're going to have millions of us together. But my heart breaks for the millions who aren't ready. So if you're willing to pray that, we'll pray that together today. And the next week, we're going to work through maybe some practical steps on talking with and leading people across the way. But right now, let's nail that down. Because I don't want any of you to be the one that looks around and says, what happened when that moment is here?